Today, we're going to talk about how to make sure that the no-code app that you're building is actually something that you can turn into a business and then scale it on the other side of your development. And if you get this wrong, the real risk is that you do finally get to the point of being able to bring on those initial test users, but you find that either they don't really want the app or that the app is just not scalable. So it's not optimized to perform well, and it's not able to handle an increased load of users or an increased load of feature sets either. That's the risk here if you get this wrong. So we're going to talk about how to get it right. Now, make sure you stick around until the end, because I'm also going to talk a little bit about a training that you can join that is going to help you get started with your app today and actually implement some of this strategy if you haven't already done so, or to help you make sure that you're implementing it correctly. And that's a free training, so stick around to the end and we'll talk about that. But first, if you're new around here, my name is Kristen and I'm the co-founder of Coaching No Code Apps, where we help business owners and industry experts build custom apps to either start their app-based businesses or grow their existing businesses, all without coding and no technical background required. So how do you make sure that the app you're building or planning to build is something you can actually turn into a business on the other side? Because that's the point here. That's what we're going for. So we don't want you to end up in that dreaded scenario that unfortunately a lot of people end up in. So what I'm going to do is share my screen and we're going to walk through it. So what we're looking at is this. We are trying to take your industry knowledge, right? Your industry knowledge and your experience, what you are personally bringing to the table. And we are trying to turn that into a business in the form of an app. So essentially, what we need to do is bridge this gap right here. We need to create a bridge that takes the knowledge and the expertise that you're bringing to the table, that wraps it up into the form of a scalable app so that you can turn it into a business on the other side and actually grow that business. So what we have to do is look at this middle section here in order to create that bridge to take you from one side to the next. And the way we break this down, the process that we follow and that we also use with our clients, it involves 4 main steps. And we're going to go through all 4 of these, and this is what helps bridge this gap. So the very first thing that you need to think about is your strategy. And way too many people overlook this, or they think they have a strategy, but in reality, they just don't, because honestly, you don't know what you don't know. So if you've never launched an app successfully, grown an app-based business, you don't know what you don't know. So you first have to make sure that you have the right strategy in place. And again, we're thinking about this in the context of being able to bridge this gap, to take your knowledge, your experience, package it up in an app, and turn it into a business. So when we're thinking about strategy, what we want to make sure is that you're, number one, building the right things in the right order. So we want to make sure you're building the right things. You have lots and lots, probably, of different ideas for what your app could involve. We want to make sure you're building the right things and for the right users. Now, this is something that a lot of people also get wrong, because generally your app will have multiple user types. Even if it's only one front-facing user and one internal user type, often it's more. Your app is going to have different user types. So you have to make sure that you're building the right things also for the right users. And to round that out, you have to make sure that you're building those things at the right time. So you have lots of features, you potentially have multiple user types. Well, how do you know what to build and when? Okay, we have to know what to build, the right things for the right users, right, at the right time. So everything has to happen in the right order in a strategic way. It cannot all just happen at once. You can't look at every single one of these things together and just build it all at once. That's not a strategic path to go down. It's not going to be something that bridges that gap. So that's what we're thinking about when we're looking at strategy. Now, when you move up, we start focusing on structure. Now, structure is when we start thinking more technically about your app. And this is when we take this strategic plan and we start implementing it in a technical way within your app. So we take the right things for the right users at the right time, and we start building a technical structure around them. So we're taking your industry knowledge, your experience, and we're putting it into that strategy, and then we're taking the components of that strategy, and now we're starting to put a technical structure around them. Now, the most important thing to keep in mind at this stage is that it's right here at the structure stage where you are implementing the scalability within your app. Most people start this backwards. They think about everything else first, and they think about scalability last. You need to think about this first, and you need to think about scalability first, because it starts right at this initial structure. So again, we're taking that strategy, we're putting a technical structure around it in a way that scales, and then we start to add in our systems. Now, our systems are basically what makes the app work. What's all the logic going on behind the scenes that's making the app work? Now, there are a couple things that you want to think about when you get to this level. First, you want to make sure that you are taking that industry knowledge, all right? And then you're taking the strategy that you have formed with that knowledge, and you are implementing the right system. So the right customizations into your app, that niche functionality that makes your app unique. You have to use the strategy that you've put into place to dictate which of these happen and when, at what time, and for what user types. Because again, the order in which you do things, how you go about this really, really matters in the long run, right? We're looking at this as how do we bridge this gap? How do we take this to the point of being a business that is scalable? We have to make sure we're looking at the right things at the right time. So we're taking that strategy, we're putting it into a structure, and now we're putting those customized niche features and functionality in place, but again, in a way that is scalable. These have to be built on top of that scalable base in order to be scalable. So we're taking the strategy and we are implementing it up into the systems, and we're taking that scalable structure and we're implementing it up into the systems. Now, once you've done that, you have the strategy, you have the scalable structure, and you have those niche systems that are built on top of both of those previous things, this is when you can start thinking about scale. You can start thinking about actually being able to grow your app in terms of users. You can grow the volume of users, and in terms of feature sets and functionality, you can start to expand your app. And with those things, when doing those things, you can start actually feeling confident that your app is going to perform well. It's still going to perform. So you're going to be able to grow it and continue growing it. Okay, now with the right strategy, with the right structure, with the right systems, and when you are ultimately able to focus on this scalability and feel confident in moving forward, that is when you can take it over into the business side, right? Because now we've bridged the gap. We've taken your industry knowledge, we've taken your experience, we've packaged it up in an app that has been built correctly in a strategic way that performs well and that is scalable. So we're bridging that gap. Now you can pump it into the business side of things. All right. So again, what we're doing is we're taking different color here. You're taking your industry knowledge and we're really funneling it right down here at this starting point into this initial strategy that we're starting out with. And by following this process, once we get to the top at this scale section here, we're able to funnel that into a business. Okay, so you can see the order in which we do things, the order in which we bridge that gap really matters. And you can follow these 4 stages to do so. Make sure you do them at the right time in the right order so that you can effectively bridge the gap. All right, I hope that was helpful. This is something that you can move forward with right now, no matter which stage you're at with your app, whether you're still in that idea stage or you haven't started development yet, or even if you are already well into development, you can start thinking about how you're moving forward in a much more strategic, efficient, and effective way so that you can see success on the other side. So again, I hope that was helpful. And if you want to get started with your app today, if you want to take pieces of this strategy and start implementing it and actually go through a planning process step by step in order to put the right strategy in place, we put together a 75-minute training that's completely free where you're going to join in and go through those steps so that you can actually get started with your app today in the correct and most strategic way. And if you've already started with your app, still go through that training to make sure you're moving forward in the right way so that you don't have to backtrack down the road, which is what we do not want for you. So to join in on that training, you can head to coachingnocodeapps.com/workshop and you can get started today. All right, thanks so much for watching and we'll see you in the next one.